So today, for a bit here, let's talk about the end of effort. So even though what we seek is, whether we know it or not, is already present, there's still this necessity in nearly all cases to make an effort to find out what is already present, paradoxically. And I know that there are certain cases that we may have read about where there's a sudden out of the blue awakening where the person wasn't even interested in spirituality and just getting on a bus or walking across the parking lot, and their essential beingness was suddenly revealed. And but that's not something to hope for a couple of reasons. One is it's exceedingly rare. And the other reason is that if it did happen without any preparation, without any spiritual understanding, it can be very confusing. To suddenly lose what you imagine yourself to be can be really disconcerting. It's probably put more than a few people in mental institutions when it was misdiagnosed. Sudden loss of identity, I don't know who I am. It can be very confusing. So it's not something to hope for, this no effort. So what would this effort be? One of the things that's helpful to know is that we can't make effort to become what we already are, to become awake, for a couple of reasons. One is any effort to try to become awake, first of all, denies that awakeness is present now. So it's always founded on a presumption, well, I have to do something to find that. The other reason is that it is can only be conceptual, because it can only be based on what I think enlightenment is. And so I'm chasing an idea or something that I've read about or something that makes sense to me or something, metaphysical that I can conceptualize, and that's what I want. Everlasting ecstatic bliss, for example. Some desirable state. But the problem is that the only thing that can want that desirable state is the personal self. And the personal self is precisely what we wake up from. So we're, trying to put effort to try to find out what we are is the personal self trying to improve its situation, right? It's like, I want something better. I want to be me, but better, like a lot better. Me, but enlightened. That's what I want. So we can't really, in that sense, we can desire it, of course, but it is not fruitful to try to, by effort, become what we already are. That doesn't work. What we can do, much more useful thing to do, is to expend effort understanding what we're not. Right? So some things are easy. I mean, some things like, I know that I'm not my car or my house. Even though you can look around and a lot of people are identified with their car, what kind of car they drive, how they feel when their neighbors see them driving in their car or coming over to their house, and this is mine and a reflection of me, and so on. But we can, that's relatively easy to see that I know that I can take pride in those things, sure, but they're not really who I am. So that's relatively easy. And then we can go a little deeper and realize, well, I like to dress well, or my hair look good. For those of you that still have hair, that's relevant. But it doesn't define what we truly are. Right? And we can go a little deeper and wonder whether, like our age, or our skin color, or our profession, things that are, yes, they're unique to us, but they don't totally define what we are. So it's not, we can't say this is what I am. It's like, yes, this is true in a relative sense, but it doesn't really touch the depth of what I feel is the sense of being me. So we can go a little deeper and see if, just our whole storyline, everything that's happened up till this point, all our hopes and regrets and fears and desires and all of that way that we view our life taken as a whole. And we're getting a little closer, maybe a little harder to see that while all that may be true, again, it doesn't completely get to the sense of being whatever I most fundamentally am. And then we get to the hard one, the belief that, investigating the belief that what I am is this body-mind, is this organism. That's what I am. I may not, fundamentally be my storyline or my, appearance or my age or my gender or any of that, but I am this body-mind. That's what I am. So we can question that. And this is where effort comes in, because any one of these things, if we find any resistance there to, such a statement like I'm not really my appearance, say, wherever we feel that resistance, then it takes some effort to inquire, well, is that true or not? I don't want to just take somebody's word for it and take it on as a belief. I want to actually know if it's true. Am I that or am I not? And so when we come down to the sense of whether or not that what I truly am is this body-mind, it may take some effort to really get to the bottom of that. It does absolutely no good. It's less than useful to take that on as a concept. Like, well, so-and-so said that I'm not really my body-mind, so I guess that may be true. That's not at all helpful. It's only, to hear that said, it's only to raise the question that's not typically raised, actually, in polite society, of whether I am this body-mind or not really. So the important thing is to notice that we're not denying the presence of the body-mind. We're not saying it doesn't exist. Clearly it exists, right? We can look at it, we can touch it, we can put food in our mouth and taste it. We can have a toothache and feel it. I mean, clearly there's something present there. The only question is, that's all clearly within our experience. But the question is that me at the deepest sense? And what we can notice is that the same way we experience, everything, is the same sensory pathways that we experience this body-mind. We can see it, we can touch it, we can taste it. We have those sensory experiences. But how we can have those experiences, but it still requires something to be aware of those experiences. So that's the key difference. So we're not denying the presence of the body-mind. Clearly it's present, has a certain form, shape, age, gender, appearance, all true, relatively speaking. But there's also this noticing what I look like when I look at myself in the mirror, which side I part my hair on, which, all of the ways that we identify ourselves. But then the question is, all of that is dependent on awareness of it. If there was no awareness of the image in the mirror, if there was nothing to be aware of it, maybe the image still appeared on the mirror, but who would know? If there was nobody home to know, you wouldn't know whether the image was there or not. You wouldn't even know whether the mirror was there or not. So all of that most fundamentally comes back to this sense of being aware. So getting to that point where we really look deeply into what's truly most essential about ourselves can take effort, can take some time, clearly, to not just to accept it as a conceptual belief, not helpful, but to really investigate it to our own satisfaction, with a sense of, I wonder if that's actually true. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I wonder if it's actually true. Well, life doesn't have to make sense. It just is true. So by this investigation, which, like I say, does take effort, does take time, just does take a sincerity of inquiry. Like I really want to know what this is about. I want to know what's true. It's not just about whether I can feel better or not, or whether I can try to, get rid of a little anxiety or make my mind a little quieter. Is it really about finding out what is actually living this life? So that can take effort. And by effort, I don't mean that by sheer personal will, we can wake ourselves up. There's what we can do by personal will is to put in the time and effort, the practice, to get in the vicinity of waking up. That's what we can do. The actual shift to awakeness is just a moment away. It happens in a flash. The preparation can take a long time. It's like an apple ripening on the tree. The ripening can take a long time, but in a moment the apple drops. At some moment the apple drops. But we can't make the apple drop by personal will. We can't sort of by personal will ourselves into awakeness, even though the awakeness is there from the very beginning, paradoxically. We can't do that because that sense of personal will trying to wake itself up is what we wake up from. It's the movement of the personal self, like I want something that feels really good that I've heard about, and I want it for who? For me. It's a movement of personal self. But that movement is what we wake up from. Just sort of a momentary lapse of that sense of wanting when we're in the vicinity. Might be enough. But we can't do it as a strategy. All we can do is make ourselves as available as possible, and we can do that through effort. But the final sort of tipping point is not up to us. But what we can do, get ourselves in the vicinity and allow ourselves to become grace prone. That we can do. And then one day we recognize what's been there all along. We recognize our true nature as our essential beingness. And at that point, further efforting doesn't make sense. Because the only movement that would want to effort further at that point is the personal self sort of sneaking in the back door and wanting to be in charge, wanting to claim doership, wanting to, be back at the controls. So we can see that movement. We can't stop the thought from happening, but we can see it. Oh, there's the mind again, just trying to, reassert its position, its authority, and just see it. It's not bad or wrong. It's just what the mind does, and offering it up as a bait for us to bite hold of or not is refining our understanding of what that mental movement is. So once the awakeness has been recognized, our job then is really to take our hands off the metaphorical steering wheel, take our foot off the gas, and be open, be willing, be honest about what we see and where we might get caught again, but not from that effortful sense of lacking something. It's more like a curious attentiveness. And most of all, a trust in that life knows what it's doing at that point. It doesn't. Any attempt to manage the process after that initial awakening only gets in the way. It's just the personal self coming back in and saying, "I know how to do this. Trust me," and it doesn't. It can't. It won't ever. And the reason that it can't is very simple. The mind can only think in concepts. It can only think in words, right? So anything that the mind comes up with will be not true at that point. It might be relatively true at some earlier point, but that's not what we're working with here now. So it's much more about not knowing, trusting life, being available, still, still attentive, and but not sort of anxiously like what's next? Again, personal self coming in. How do I advance myself further? It's but at this point in life knows what it's doing. Our job is to trust the process of unfolding. So the mind is the body is really good at seeing or having evidence of when we get off base. We're talking about after awakening now, although it's also true before to a certain extent. But where there's a sense of any sense of suffering or restlessness or anxiety, those sort of places of discomfort are sort of indicators, sort of like the indicator light on your car. Check this, don't ignore this. These are, what is the underlying belief that's causing me to suffer in this moment? Some belief, some old residual belief, perhaps. It says, well, So those are worth investigating, but we don't have to chase things. Life is very good at offering up opportunities, one after another, to learn. There's much more to learn after awakening, but we don't have to chase it out of a sense of lack. That's really the time to let the efforting go, remain quietly attentive, but really be on the lookout for any sense of the mind reasserting itself to act out of a sense of lack, like, what am I missing? How much, where am I on the journey? What's this about? How do I know I'm getting further? And so on. All mental questions having to do with how can I have a better experience? So we can just see that that's what the mind does.